Everyone. My name is Nancy Barry. Welcome to Decorah UU. My pronouns are she and hers, and I will be leading the service today with the tech support of Carolyn Corbin and the reading support of Lolly Madrigera. We are welcoming our guest, Charlie Langton, who I will introduce more fully later. We are a welcoming, lay-led spiritual community moving together in time in an open search for truth and meaning. We believe in people's inherent capacity to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment, pursuing the good of humanity. Today's service relates to our fourth UU principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I want to give a reminder that the service is both being live streamed and recorded. Anything you say will therefore be publicly available online. If you are visiting us today, we welcome you. I'll give just a moment for anyone who cares to introduce themselves to the community to do so. We're glad to have you with us. If you are visiting, you can complete a form at decorahuu.org. Contact us to receive our weekly newsletter, electronic newsletter, and to learn more about our congregation. And of course, all of us can learn more about Unitarian Universalism at uua.org. For the sake of those of you who will be joining us by audio only, I'll just highlight some of the announcements that are printed in our bulletin. I think one announcement that I'm sure the board would want everyone to pay attention to is that we are in the season of covenant renewal here at Decorah UU. So we ask our members to renew their covenant with the fellowship. You should have received by email a covenant renewal form that you can fill out for the coming year. The board wants these forms completed by April 15th via email sent to bethwahlberg@gmail.com or the UU Post Office Box 382 in Decorah. If you have any questions, you can email Beth Wahlberg or call her. Her number is printed in the bulletin. And if you need a paper copy of the form, please contact Beth or Otter. The second announcement that I'll make is that our Share the Plate for March and April is Art House. And it's for the development of a dye garden featuring a brick path engraved with the names of supporters. To donate to our Share the Plate recipient, see the UU giving link or send a check, but please note, put Share the Plate on your check in the memo line. Donations can be mailed to Decorah UU. Are there any other announcements? Carolyn has an announcement.
Hi, thanks, Nancy. I would like to share that on April 20th, Tuesday, April 20th, the next meeting of Collective Action for Racial Equity will be meeting 6 o'clock on Zoom on Tuesday, April 20th. We meet the third Tuesdays of the month. And if you're already on the CARE listserv, you'll get a notice. If you're interested in knowing more, you can reach out to me or Otter can forward you to me too. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other, Karen has an announcement.
I do. I actually have two. I want to make sure that everybody is also aware, unless I'm misremembering things, I don't have the bulletin in front of me, that our next service is not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after will be our annual meeting. So it's particularly important that folks attend. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that one of the things that's been taking a lot of my non-work time recently is rehearsals for Clue, the most recent production of New Minowa Players, which is about to hit performance stage Sunday, April 18th through Wednesday, April 21st. I am putting a link directly into the Zoom chat that could take you right to where you could get tickets if you like. But otherwise, you can go to newminowaplayers.org. And this is a stay-at-home experience. We had an entirely stay-at-home experience in our rehearsals. They were all via Zoom. So it's an online accessible recording that again will be available through the very strange dates of Sunday, April 18th through Wednesday, April 21st. And I hope that folks will support local theater, which continues to try to share theater with the world, even in the midst of a pandemic. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Any other announcements that someone would care to share? I can't, let me see if there's any other hands raised here. Seeing none. I will close our announcement section of the service so that we can begin the service proper. I wanted to note that we are in the midst of very important days of holiness around the world. April 9th is Holocaust Remembrance Day. Ramadan begins tomorrow at sunset. The Sikh community celebrates on April 14th, the founding of its community. And of course, on April 22nd, we celebrate Earth Day here. So we are in a time of great renewal. And I think that's really important as we celebrate today our fourth principle of free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I will call on Lolly Madrigara to read our chalice lighting as I too light a chalice in my house.
We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. Annie Dillard.
Thank you, Lolly. It was lovely. Our opening song today is from Art Garfunkel. And I chose the song because I think it speaks of a photographer's vision and what it means to be an artist, always in search of the beautiful in life.
Everything waits to be noticed. A tree falls with no one there. The full potential of a love affair. Everything waits to be noticed. 28 geese in sudden flight. The last star on the edge of the night. A single button come undone. The middle child, the prodigal son. Everything waits to be noticed. A trickle underneath the dam. Missing line from the telegram. Everything waits to be noticed. The whispering pains that say you're living. The slow burn of not forgiving. The quiet room, the unlikely pair. The full potential of a love affair. Everything waits to be noticed. Longing for braver days, cautiously turning a phrase, going unnoticed, Everything wants to be noticed. The changing light in the upper air. Full potential of a love affair. Everything waits to be noticed.
Thanks to Art Garfunkel for that minute. We come to a part of our service now where we acknowledge the land that we live on and those to whom we owe a great and needing to be acknowledged debt. With this land acknowledgement, our congregation is engaging in a practice of truth-telling and reconciliation. Northeast Iowa was first home to the Iowa, or Bokshoi, the Sac and Fox, or Meskwaki, the Dakota, and the Ho-Chunk. We recognize the ongoing relationship of Indigenous people to this land and follow their lead as we endeavor to be stewards as we go forward. Please pause with me for a moment as we commit our hearts to uplifting, standing with, listening to, and following the lead of Black, Indigenous, and people of color as we endeavor to create the world in which we want to live. Thank you. We come now to the time in our service where we acknowledge joys and sorrows. We ask anyone who is joining us on audio to use *6 to signal that you would want to participate in the joys and sorrows. Others can raise their hand. We have been recording the meeting so far, but we will not be recording joys and sorrows. That is the one section of our service that we don't put publicly online. But you may light a virtual votive candle as you share any joys or concerns with the fellowship. And I think I would like to light one today to get us started. First of all, to thank Charlie Langton, who I call our photographer laureate of Decorah. I thank him for being with us. Thank you. We come now to the time where we acknowledge our debt to one another and the UUs by making our offering. We would ask those of you who participate, we thank those of you who participate monthly in a withdrawal plan, and those of you who would like to make an offering now, here is the PO box on the screen for you to mail in your offerings to Decorah UU. We have our offering song, which we will play now as well to record our thanks. Thank you. To get us started on our program this morning, we have a reading that Lali Madrigera will present to us.
At our best and most fortunate, we make pictures because of what stands in front of the camera, to honor what is greater and more interesting than we are. We never accomplish this perfectly, though in return, we are given something perfect, a sense of inclusion. Our subject thus redefines us and is part of the biography by which we want to be known. By Robert Adams.
Thank you, Lali. I hope that presents a spirit of how we can engage for the next few minutes. This program presentation is called Process and Product, a meditation on photography. And Charlie was quite insistent that he and I engage in a kind of conversation about photography. So I have some questions that I will pose to Charlie, and he will sort of talk through answers, but it will be a little bit of a back and forth. I would ask that you put yourself on mute while we're doing this, and then I will do my best to save some time for questions and commentary afterwards. I want to thank Charlie for being with us. Charlie moved to Decorah in 1986 to work for Vesterheim. He just retired last year. Before that, he lived in Lansing for 2 years. He bought his first camera back then and learned black and white darkroom processing. He tells us that some of his favorite pictures are among those very first ones. And I know that as a writer, I feel that way too, that sometimes when I look back on pieces of art that I've made, those early works are really dear to me. He tells us digital photography and processing is a different ball game, and Decorah has been his test subject. And this is a true Charlie Langton expression. He says, "Still I am learning." And that's why we love him. And I had been having this idea of wanting to speak with Charlie about what he does when he pays attention to our lives that are shared. And basically our conversation today will focus on process, what it means to pay attention, what it means to meditate through photography, and then community. How it is that what we present through the photographs joins us with other people. And so to get us started, Charlie, let me just ask this question. What does it mean to pay attention to process when doing a photograph? What's that mean to you?
Well, to be honest, and I think this is what most people would feel is true about most anything they undertake. When I first began taking photographs, I just went around shooting anything unconsidered, and I got a lot of crap in return. Bad photos, ill-conceived photos, and as soon as failure presents itself, we start to learn things. So that's when we start paying attention, is when we make those initial failures, I think. There's a lot that you have to pay attention to. There's the exterior things you have to pay attention to. So you have to pay attention to light and to composition and things like that. But at the same time, there are interior things you have to pay attention to as well. So every photograph is a combination between that interior person that you are, because you're making choices, and that exterior thing that you are trying to capture. So I think you have to generate a kind of calm and start looking very carefully. Every spring, I take the same I take that picture of that trillium and I go online, and there are 40 other people who just posted their picture of the first trillium, and all of our pictures look exactly alike. And so then you go, okay, so what do I have to say or offer anyone? And how do I bring that into the picture to make that statement something else, something other than just, I mean, we all love trilliums, but and that's a great celebration. But then you start asking questions of yourself, like, why is my vision different, and how do I convey that? So there's that interior conversation that goes on too.
Well, in that, I wonder too if that's what's interesting about the art form, is this idea that the moment that the trillium speaks to you to hit the shutter, and to take the camera, that it's belied by the external appearance of the photograph, in the sense that it's a resemblance of the world out there that we can recognize, and we sort of fool ourselves into thinking, well, that's a trillium and it looks just like these other trillium photos that people have posted. But really what's at stake is, I mean, I hate to mention Plato so early on a Sunday morning, but there really is something that we're trying to sort of capture, which is the essence of the thing that spoke to our internal artist. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Well, I don't know much about essences, but I do think that there is I think photography is relational, whether it's the relation between the exterior subject and the photographer, and then it becomes even more broadly relational in that it's conveyed to a larger group of people. So it's like in any art form, just like in writing. It's like anyone who's been in a writing class. People express what they feel in a poem or a short story, and then the next step that teachers have to struggle with is, well, great, that's self-expression, but how do you make that alive as an experience for someone else? How that reader, there's a difference between self-expression and a well-written piece that actually recreates that experience in someone else. And so I don't know if anyone captures. It's just like that Robert Adams quote that we did with, we're bound to fail as far as getting that essence goes. But in the attempt, we unite ourselves in that process of looking at our world. And so that is the most important thing, I think, that we do, is that we come together in looking, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't think that anyone can capture an essential. I mean, photographers photograph the same thing over and over because they never quite, no one ever gets that essential thing. So, or when you think of painters, when how often do they repeat their subjects over and over and over again because they're still trying.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. So this is sort of like just a technical question. do you go in search of photographs sometimes, and in other times are you surprised by the photographs that you encounter? In other words, are you the kind of person who is carrying his camera with him most of the time so that you can kind of be surprised by something that you see and decide to document it? Or like you were saying earlier when we were talking about where the source of some of those photographs that we saw in the service, you talked about, well, I'm headed out there today.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious as to sort of how it works on you as a practice in terms of, yes, I'm going to kind of be doing some photography today, or, oh, here I am with my camera and look at what has unveiled itself to me today.
Well, I do, much to the regret of many people here and within the community, I do carry my camera with me a lot. And inflict it on, I see Jean smiling, and inflict it on them. But so I do carry my camera a lot. There's nothing more mournful than to a photographer than seeing something extraordinary and not getting the picture of it. And oddly enough, that's another training you have to do. Like my friend Lindy always says, but you had the experience that you don't have to capture everything. You saw that eagle, so what if you didn't get a good picture of it, or something like that. So it's not a replacement for experience, but I do carry my camera around a lot. But I also go out and I go to places where I think I may encounter things. Mm-hmm. Recently, I went to Old Wine twice to get my COVID shots, and I brought my camera, and that was a very moving time for me because that town was once a thriving, beautiful place, and then the train industry left and meth came in, and there's all sorts of urban decay, very photogenic urban decay, that I spent 2 days, a minute for a shot, and then 2 full days taking pictures there, trying to capture that kind of sadness of a dying town. And so, so you do go to places for photographs too. And today I'm going out to Boulder Roll, and I ran into Otter and Bill, I guess was that last weekend when I was out near Lundy Bridge. So I do go to places to take pictures, or I go to places to hike, and then maybe a picture will come, but yeah. I don't know, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes it a practice, I guess,
Yeah.
I've noticed, speaking of this, when you alluded to taking photographs of people around town because your camera is with you, that you capture many of us in town in these, what we would call candid moments, dating myself here by remembering the sort of classic television show called You're on Candid Camera, in which there was a camera lurking to capture ordinary people doing ordinary or quite funny sort of actions. I guess and this is what draws me into your photographs, Charlie, that leads to this sort of sense that there is, in the singular art form, there also is a community building process. And I guess I'm wondering what's involved in your getting people to sort of pose and not pose once they realize the camera is there. And then we'll talk some more about sort of then what happens once you post those photographs. But can you just talk about your sense of what it means to capture people in particular moments of their lives?
Well, this has become a dicier subject in the world of photography generally. But I'm very lucky for the most part to have a very cooperative town who have let me learn my craft more. I mean, when I look back at some of the pictures I took 4 years ago of you guys, you know, and the quality of the photograph itself is not so good. I realize what a debt I owe to everybody in Decorah who has let me take their picture. But I'm lucky because so many people have gotten used to me and my camera now that I point my camera at them and they think, oh, that's just Charlie. That's just Charlie taking his pictures, and they can act more, they act less rigidly, you know, and more, and they're a little bit more goofy, and that's great. It's not something I could do in New York. I'd probably get slugged. And because you don't know the people, you don't have that community. But I think that there's been a great cooperation between the town and me in building that large library of pictures of people in Decorah. The problem I have is that I would like to portray the community in a really honest way. And when I take pictures of people, they're always, I mean, Decorah is a happy town, true, but my pictures only show one side of our community, you know, that happy public face. You know, I take pictures at street events and in the co-op and things like this. And it has that great positive sense, which we all are, but I long to take pictures with a little bit more grit, and people don't like their picture taken during gritty times. I mean, there are people who don't like their picture taken at all, but that's one of the sadnesses of photography, is that it is difficult to capture darker moments in people's lives. There's that kind of invasion that happens. But the picture of our community that we create then is slanted. You know, I always think of people who go on Facebook and they might be a little depressed, and then they see all of these pictures of wonderful, happy people, you know, vacationing here and there, and that would probably drive them deeper in depression. So I think it's important that I mean, this is just a photographer's opinion, but I think it's important that we feel more comfortable showing all of our sides to the world, you know, and not publicly curating ourselves so much. But of course, that's everybody's individual choice. They have to do it. But I really think we do a disservice, to a social disservice, when we only present ourselves in this positive, wonderful, happy-go-lucky way. So that's what I found very moving about your sharing earlier, was that you were willing to share the difficulties that you're going through in your lives. And I think that's a really important kind of support. And people need to see that visually as well, I think. But
And is there a tension? I mean, first of all, I think Facebook as a place where you post many of your pictures
Mhm.
And I love your disclaimer. For those of you who haven't seen it, this is what Charlie prints whenever he posts or writes, when he posts these uh, uh, pictures on Facebook. These photos are meant as a joyous record of our shared time together. Please tag people you know. If I am ever taking a picture of you or a family member and you don't want me to, please tell me. If I post a photo of you or a family member and it makes you in any way uncomfortable, please inform me and I will take it down. Always feel free to untag yourself from any photo. And I love that disclaimer, or whatever you call it, because first of all, it's a little bit of a nudge towards just what you're talking about, which is to say, even though you say it's a joyous record of our time together, it is a record of our time together. And you're sort of saying to the community, by your willingness to share this moment in which I took your picture, and your willingness to have it posted, we have a kind of collective memory that we're establishing together about either an event or a moment in time or who we were. And if you don't want to participate in it, absolutely tell me so. But I'm really interested in what you're saying here, Charlie, that even given that disclaimer, there still is a bit of tension between people wanting their best, literally their best side to always show up in photographs, that oh my gosh, that's a picture that Charlie took of me and it just makes my chin look too wide. I just, but to me, that's the reality of who we are.
Well, to me, it's the reality of who we are too, though it's so much easier to say that to someone else than it is to say it to yourself. I mean, I have to admit, I hate pictures of me that show what a tub of lard I am lower down. So we all have that kind of vanity, but we have to, actually there's I hope that, I hope she doesn't mind. Well, I won't mention her name, but there is someone here who I posted a picture, what I thought was a beautiful picture of her, and she initially didn't like it because it showed that she had wrinkles. But I personally, I love faces with wrinkles. And she has since shared with me that she became comfortable with the fact that she was aging, and it started with that representation of the pictures. Another friend of mine used to hate any pictures where she was not controlling the thing, and now she just laughs at that and says, I don't know what I was thinking, why was I like that? So but everyone gets to decide that. I can't decide that. I mean, in America, it's legal if you're not inside inside a building, or anything on the street is open game, theoretically, for photography. But we've become more sensitive now to that personal transgression, that not everybody wants their picture taken, and we have to respect that. And I have to admit, I'm torn. While I totally recognize and will always respect that, it narrows the story that we tell about our community if we're only presenting our best sides, or if we're only we're self-censoring the narration of our community, I think. But those are individual decisions, and you have to respect it. So
Well, that sort of leads me to my next question, which is, how your work as a photographer. We're going to open this up to people's questions and comments in a minute, but how has your work as a photographer influenced how you see yourself as a subject? You were alluding to that just a little bit ago, of having to recognize your own vanity and your own sort of desire to sort of, to see yourself as a subject is to, of course, help you understand exactly what it means for other people to be subjects. But I'm just curious about the bigger issue of how being a photographer does something to your sense of yourself and your own ego or selflessness. Can you talk about that at all before we open it up?
Well, the thing is, first of all, I know people aren't going to believe this, but I'm actually much more introverted than I seem. I have this little switch that I click on, my little public switch, but photography has helped me in that kind of introversion. But risking, like, I go online and I see pictures by, there are so many photographers. You mentioned the photographers in your, people like Parker Dean and Ellen and Carolyn. Those people take, to a person, they take better pictures than me. So much better pictures than me. And I'm a case where quantity has trumped quality. I just take so many pictures that people go, oh yeah, you're the one who takes all the pictures in Decorah. Well, but that's just because I'm ruthless, I guess. I don't know what it is, but it's not a question of quality. And I have to face, there's a kind of facing failure where if you want to get better at anything, you have to put out your work and then realize that your work sucks or it's not as good as that, and you gain that impetus to try to be better and that kind of thing. So I have to admit, I faced the same thing when I wrote poetry. I was in the workshop and everything, but there were so many better poets than me. And I think that's helped stop me from writing. Mm-hmm. It shut me up. And I guess I refuse to let that happen with photography. I just don't want to be stifled by the success and the talent of other people. I have to learn to face and to grow within those spaces. So that's one way that photography has helped me as a person. The other way is that stopping, slowing down, and paying attention to seeing things that aren't immediately apparent. That learning to do that more and more is something that I value too. Am I answering your question?
Yes,
I never know what I'm answering.
No, I know. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem with the questions. It's not. Thank you, Charlie. It's so much. It's 10:53, and I just want to spend a few minutes having people ask Charlie questions. If you have a question you'd like to ask, click on reactions and raise hands, and Carolyn and myself will try and acknowledge anyone who's got a question. I don't have the full view of faces in front of me, but Craig Mosier, I see, has a question. So go ahead, Craig, and then Sue Oddie. Craig, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Craig.
You'd think I would know that by now. So, Charlie, good to see you, and wonderful to hear you talk about this. I guess I'm wondering, when you're looking at a series of pictures you've taken, or even at someone else's work, and you're trying to decide which is the best one of these, which is a good picture, how much of that is a sort of immediate, intuitive, gut level reaction to the photo, and how much of it is your brain thinking about composition and lighting and stuff like that?
Well, I have to admit, there is that first initial response, but after many years, I do jump immediately from emotion to composition and things like that. But there are still things I don't, I'm learning about even judging pictures. There is a very famous American photographer named William Eggleston. And he talks about democratic vistas. So his mother, he was complaining to his mother that there was nothing beautiful to take pictures of around there. And so she said, well, then take pictures of the ugly stuff. And then he did. And I never understood why people liked William Eggleston. His pictures were, I thought, were boring. Seemed like little compositional things. And then recently, in the past year, well, actually, another photographer, Alex Soth, gave this little talk on William Eggleston, and I saw, like he saw for the first time. And so I think that there's a great danger when we look at pictures of not appreciating everything that is there. So I have to put in bracket any judgment I make about a photograph, because I may end up liking it more later, including my own pictures. But I would say that you have that initial emotional response, and I think that's powerful. And then you look, and so when I'm looking at pictures in post-process, I go, well, this could be a good picture, but maybe it would be a better picture if I cropped it a little bit like this, or lightened up this or something. So it's kind of like the darkroom work for a digital photographer. So, and I'm learning more about that. I'm learning about color grading now. And so pretty soon everyone's going to go, your pictures are so orange. Well, I'm trying to learn it. So, but yeah, it's a tough thing. And pictures that I said, okay, I made this the best I could. I go back 4 years later and want to re-edit it again and say it wasn't the best. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like it's a constant sense of revision. As a poet, I was a terrible reviser, and I still am. And I recognize that my opinions today are not going to be my opinions tomorrow or the next day, and that I'm constantly in flux about that. So that was a totally nonsensical answer to a perfectly good question. So, but
Thank you.
it's true.
Okay, all right, Sue, quickly, do we have time for your question?
Sure, Charlie. I just wanted to say I always liked your poetry, and I love your photography too. But you've always been so unsure of yourself, or always talking about how difficult you find it, and you seem to well, your self-deprecating humor has always been a part of who you are, I know. But I have similar problems with some of the artwork I do, in thinking everyone expects it to be good now. So if I put something out there and it's not up to standards, how can I do it? And a couple of weeks ago, someone posted something on Facebook that it really stuck with me. And it seems like it's kind of your philosophy too. I mean, your Buddhism maybe comes into this. And it was that if you view everything as practice, your suffering will disappear. And I thought, well, yeah, I mean, then I don't say, oh, this one isn't quite as good. I don't know, I shouldn't post this piece that I've done. And then I realized, yeah, I mean, I'm always practicing. And don't you kind of feel that yourself a little bit?
Well, I do. That's the way I feel about my photography. And that's the reason I'm so grateful for this community for letting me to practice on them. But I do feel that. I'm not sure that my practice has achieved a point of eliminating suffering yet. But I think I suffer less with the practice of photography than I suffered with poetry. I feel that there's less, I don't know, but I enjoy photography in a way. I love poetry, but I don't love writing it as much anymore, because in photography, there's always some of you in every picture you take, but not as much of me in a photograph as there is in a poem. And I got sick of me, to tell you the honest truth. And poetry, I don't have any insights that other people don't have, and I don't have any other things, that I'm not that unique and I'm not that imaginative. So I decided I'll let the exterior world be more of my subject and less my interior world.
Well, Charlie, I speak for all of us here and many other people who aren't here to say that we're grateful that you share both the interior and the exterior vision, because it makes us as a community more alive, and it makes us as a community a little more hopeful, and it makes us as a community a little more reflexive. And I'm grateful for that. I always have been. And I appreciate your spending time with us today. People can be in touch with you. We'll have Otter send your email to folks after the meeting. I should put it in the chat right now, but I'm worried that I'm going to mistype it. So we'll just follow it. Is that okay, Charlie, that people who want to be in touch with you can email you?
Sure.
Okay.
We're still in lockdown. I'll take all the company I can get.
Okay, all right. We'll make sure that we post your email in a future bulletin so that people can be in touch with you. We have our closing song for today, which is a meditation by Carrie Newcomer. There it is, just below the surface of things. So I realize we're right up against 11 o'clock, but if you can hang on to listen to this song, I hope it closes our service well, and then we'll extinguish the chalice.
Just beyond my sight, something that I cannot see. I've been circling round a thought that's been circling round me, like the vapor of a song that is just out of earshot. I thought I knew the question, but I guess not. There it is, just below the surface of things, in a flash of blue, and the turning of wings. I drain the glass, I drink it down, every moment of this, every little bit of it. I swam against the tide, I tripped on my own pride, so I'll try again today to get out of my own way. The face was always in the stone, said Michelangelo. You just have to chip and clear to see what is already there. There it is, just below the surface of things, in a flash There it is in the apple of every new notion. There it is in the scar healed over what was broken, in the branches, in the whispering, in the silence and the sighs, and the curious promise of limited time. Although it's hard, a shadow glides over the ridge, and one fast beating heart tries with all its might to live, and we sense but can't describe from the corner of our eye something nameless and abiding, and so we keep transcribing. There it is, just below surface of things, in a flash of blue, and the turning of wings that drain the glass, drink it down every moment of this, every little bit of it. Every little bit. Every little bit of it.
Thank you. Thank you to Carrie Newcomer. We'll extinguish the chalice. Lolly, would you please read the
Yes.
quote from Wendy
Alright.
Berry as we extinguish the chalice?
We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all poets passing in and out of life who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no one hears it except in fragments. By Wendell Berry.
Thank you all. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Lolly. Hello from we've got our own photographs. Remember, in the spirit of photographs, Carolyn is wanting to collect photographs of our community, fellowship members. So if you have a photograph, please do send it to Carolyn Corbin. This is a great one from Anders, Tom, Annika, and Beth. That's a great portrait. So glad to finish with that. Thank you all for a lovely service. Thanks again to Charlie. We'll see you all in 2 weeks for our annual meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Lolly. Carolyn, thank you so much for your excellent tech work as always. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it without having you running the slides. So it's a great, really appreciate it. Charlie, great job.
Well, I hope it was okay and I didn't ramble too much.
No, it was excellent. It was excellent. It was terrific.
It was good to hear. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Lolly, Nancy, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to sign off now.